So I was like, shit. Like, abhi hona tha ye.
Now the juicy part.
The borders were supposed to shut at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we reached at 7 o'clock in the morning. So if it gets difficult, do you run away from people that love you? I had started distancing myself from my parents. I was like, what is this man?
That's not juicy at all. That's terrible. Welcome to another episode of Love Handle, where we get unfiltered about love and relationships, and I have with me Manisha.
Hello.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am Manisha and I'm from Patna. I have been living in Delhi for about 9 years now, and I'm currently working as a consultant in the field of education.
Nice. I hear that you've got quite the love story, which is why we've decided to snatch you away from your consulting duties and bring you here.
I think so. I've been with my partner for more than 4 years now.
What's his name?
His name is Kush. I was in a relationship before I met Kush. Then, that ended not on a nice note. During this period of time, I started traveling a lot. I started backpacking, and, I started going for little treks, little hikes. I mean, every other month I was in Himachal. And that's where I met Kush also.
Oh, you met Kush in Himachal?
Yes, and I found it to be really interesting because I am an animal lover. I love plants. I love trees. Green is my favorite color. And whenever, I'm in the hills, I'm surrounded by all of these things. So it was very calming for me. And that's why I kept running to Himachal all the time.
So now you're on this, this journey of finding your own footing and standing on your own 2 feet, and you're in Himachal now.
Yeah.
Okay, now the juicy part. Then what
and
happens?
COVID happened, Ankur.
Oh, that's not juicy at all. That's terrible.
No, so I'll tell you something. If COVID didn't happen, I wouldn't have met Kush.
Oh, okay.
So I know it's a very different journey for a lot of other people. There was a lot of suffering because of COVID. But luckily for me, I think that the first lockdown was the most beautiful period of my life. Because I'll tell you what happened. So I was in Himachal again, and I think it was March of 2020 when the lockdown was announced. Mm-hmm. Mid-March, I had gone to Himachal. I was supposed to go to the Khir Ganga trek, and I was supposed to leave for the trek. I was at the base camp, which is the Kalga village. It's also my second home. I absolutely love the village. It's beautiful. The day that I was supposed to leave for the trek, I got a call from the homestay where I was staying that, hey, they're evacuating the village. They're sending all the tourists back because lockdown has been announced, and everything's going to shut in like 2 days.
Right.
So it was very chaotic. Now, these guys were like, come back, you can't go for the trek. So I came back from the waterfall. I was just sitting by the waterfall chilling. I came back from the waterfall really high. And I was like, okay, so do I have to leave now? What do I do? So these guys were like, yeah, you have to leave right now. And this was the first time that I was traveling alone. So I was like, shit. Like, abhi hona tha ye kya ho gaya? And I packed my stuff, and, I just prepared my sack, and then I put it on myself. And then, like Dora the Explorer, I went downhill, and I realized there are no buses, and there are no cabs, no buses. And I started asking everybody, the people around in the villages, that how do I get back? And these guys were like, there's nothing here. There are no buses.
You live here now.
Oh, I wish. But the catch is that my parents did not know I was traveling. And
you're such a wild card. I love it. I love it, Manisha.
And the moment the lockdown was announced, my father called me. He was like, I've booked your flight tickets. You're supposed to come to Patna now. You can't stay there.
From where? Delhi?
From Delhi, yeah. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. I was like, Delhi kaise pahunchu pehle? So the villagers were like, there's nothing. So I was like, okay, fine. What do I do now? So I hitchhiked.
You did not. You hitchhiked?
Yeah.
All the way to Delhi?
No, not all the way to Delhi. So I got on a truck and I was like, please mujhe mandi le chalo. Mandi mein there's Himachal's interstate bus terminal. Then he took me to Manikaran. He was like, I'm not going to Mandi. So you get down here. I was like, okay, then what do I do now? Then in Manikaran, I found a local bus. There was this one bus and there was a huge crowd of people trying to get onto the bus. So I had to push my way through them, and then I got onto the bus and we reached Mandi. And there, I go there and I see there are no buses going to Delhi. So I was almost in tears. I went to the inquiry counter, and there he was standing at the inquiry counter. And I remember, standing behind him for a good 5 minutes. He was on a call with his mom. I was eavesdropping and feeling nice that, okay, I'm not the only one who's stuck here. So he was trying to like tell his mom, मैं बहुत जाऊँगा, मैं आ जाऊँगा, मैं don't worry, मैं ढूंढ रहा हूँ, कुछ ना कुछ हो जाएगा ये वो.
He was comforting you too. He didn't realize it.
Yeah, he didn't realize it. Then I just tapped on his shoulder. I was like, are you also going to Delhi? He's like, yeah, why? I was like, I'm trying to find, something that will take me to Delhi. So he was like, okay, don't worry, we'll find something together. I was like, okay, can I tag along with you? He was like, yeah. And we've been tagging along for more than 4 years now.
Wow, that's so cool.
He told me, I kept looking at you because I had a weird braid in my hair and there was a bell hanging from it. And he was like, I was thinking, what has she done to her hair?
That's what he was thinking on the bus?
Yeah.
So you guys met there, and then how did you find your way back to Delhi then?
So we found one bus which was going to Ambala. We got on that bus. So he was like, okay, let's eat something. And he's this person, like whenever he sees that I'm anxious, he'll be like, let's eat something. So even at that Mandi bus stand, he was like, let's eat something first, that'll get our brains working. I was like, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. I'm like very hungry. So we went to, this dhaba nearby and we were having naan. And I was just telling him, bhai, kya kare? How do we get to Delhi? There's no bus. Like, do we walk? What do we do? And he was like, kuch to karna padega. And then I see there's this bus to Ambala. It's going, uske piche se nikal ke. And I was like, there's a bus. And then we left our food, we picked up our stuff and we ran after the bus.
No way.
And then we got on through the bus. We reached Ambala. And then from Ambala, we hitchhiked to Delhi. We got into an auto, a tempo, a truck, like somehow, and then a cab. And we made it to Delhi. So the borders were supposed to shut at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we reached at 7 o'clock in the morning. So we made it to Delhi. Now he was supposed to go back to Kanpur from Delhi, which he couldn't. And I was supposed to go back to Patna from Delhi, which I couldn't. So we got stuck together. So he went back to his friend's house in Delhi. So I called him up. I was like, were you able to go to Kanpur? He was like, no, we're stuck here basically. He started talking about, and with a lot of passion, about what he does, about his, the field of architecture. He's an architect and he was trying to build a sustainable property there in Himachal.
Wow.
So he started talking about all of these, sustainable alternative methods of, building houses and recycling stuff. And I was like, oh, wow, yeah, like, this sounds interesting. I was like, wow, he's living the life that I dream of. Also, the fact that he cared so much about living an eco-conscious life, because that is how I am also. I found that very, very interesting about him. So yeah, we'd been talking to each other throughout. He's the most gentle guy that I've ever met in my entire life. He was so caring and there was nothing that he wanted out of me. I think that was unique because he didn't even ask for my number. I had to be like, dude, like, give me your number.
Wow.
Just in case, if I need your help, or like I would like to be connected with you. It was a very symbiotic relationship in the beginning because I couldn't stay at my flat. So I called him up and I was like, did you make it home? And he was like, no, I'm stuck here at my friend's place and we don't know how to cook. I was like, I know how to cook. So you clean, I cook, and we live together. And that's how we make it.
Wow.
We did start off as a team.
That's also kind of like a bit of a leap of faith on your part to, because you'd only known him a very short amount of time, to say, hey, like, let's live together. During
the journey to Delhi, I'd started trusting him a lot. I think that's something that I learned from him because his love language is acts of service. Mine was not, like, also because I've been living away from the family. I've been living alone for 8 years, 9 years, right? And I'm this hyper independent person and sometimes called selfish by my family members because, I tend to put myself first, right? So my love language was not acts of service, but his was. And it's a beautiful thing, I think, because he also taught me that I deserve to, be taken care of. I don't have to be this hyper-vigilant person all the time. I need to like take a back seat sometimes and let somebody else, do the stuff for me, make me feel comfortable.
Right. What is your love language?
Mine is words of affirmation. Like, आज मैं आ रही थी तो I was thinking, how will I describe him? And he's the ho jayega guy. And I'm the super anxious girl, like I am very anxious and he's always like, हो जाएगा. Don't get anxious. Think it through. You need to take actions. The more you're inside your head, the more, you ruin it for yourself. So ho jayega.
Because that having a ho jayega guy in your life is so important.
It's very important. So we used to talk a lot all the time, and I started opening up to him about, some hardships in my life that I was going through at that point of time. There were disagreements with my family, as every other child or person from Bihar. I was expected to appear for UPSC, and I didn't want to do that. So there was a disagreement with my father, and that was troubling me a lot at that moment of time. So I started opening up to him about that, and he started opening up to me about some of the things that were going on around him. So he helped me figure it out. I had started distancing myself from my parents because of that, because every conversation was a very difficult conversation. But he was like, no, what are you doing? Because he's this guy, he will talk to his family every day religiously, his sisters, his mother, his father, his brother, every day. And he was like, so if it gets difficult, do you run away from people that love you and people who you love? And I was like, no, not really. But all my father talks about is, the career. And he's like, all right then, so you talk about something else to him. And I was like, okay, let me do that. So he pushed me to sort of get closer to my family at a time when it was really difficult to even have a conversation with, my mother, my father. And I respect him for that. So I think in that moment, I realized that, okay, he's here, he's taking care of me, seeking nothing in return. He's also making me see, the brighter side of things. He's also making me resilient. And he's a stranger. I
think partners, for me, correct, and see whether you feel the same, but for me, the ideal partner helps nurture loving relationships outside of your own.
Yes.
And at the same time, either helps you empower you to cut off toxic relationships or change the nature of them, which it seems like what he was doing with you and your father. He's like, this is still salvageable.
Yes, he challenges me, to be the better version of myself every day. This guy, he'll wake up in the morning and he'll be like, oh, what do we do today? Like, aaj kya kaam karna hai? So, he's the enthusiasm with which he approaches every day. I was amazed. I was like, what is this man? Like, look at me. I'm a sad piece of, mess right now, and look at him. And I remember this one morning, so we were on a walk, and, we were sitting in a park, and I think we were the only people there because there wasn't anybody on the road at that time. So we were the only people there, and we were just looking at, the sunrise. And it was me who told him first that, I think I'm falling in love with you. And I was so scared. I was like, what is he going to think? What will he say? And he didn't say anything. He laughed. And after 10 seconds, he's like, yeah, I think I'm falling in love with you too. I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. It's like, Sachi.
That's incredible. That does take a lot of courage.
And he also doesn't talk a lot. I'm a yapper. So through these 4 years of my relationship, also this is something that, we've really worked on. We started struggling with this also, that, he doesn't give away a lot. He doesn't talk about his emotions a lot. And you really have to take him. Batao. Then he'll tell you that, okay, yeah, I'm feeling this way today. तो वो खोदना पड़ता है कि कोश, tell me, you look tense, what's going on? Nothing. So,
I was going to ask actually, you have such wonderful things to say about him and about the kind of ways he balances you. If you were sitting here and I were to ask him, in what ways do you balance him out? What do you think he'd say?
I think we had this conversation 2 weeks ago. We have our practice every weekend. We sit together and then we talk about things that he brings to the table for me and things that I bring to the table for him. So this was one that, I have helped him comprehend and voice emotions better than before. And it was very difficult for him, he still struggles with that a little bit. He's become a lot better in sort of not reacting on the basis of an emotion, trying to understand it first and then, sort of taking any action towards it. So that plus this practice of going on walks is still there. So he said that, I love how you get excited at, little things, So earlier, I would look at, oh, that's a big mountain and that would get me excited. But now I look at, oh, there's a little butterfly there. And he was like, this is something that you've taught me, that there's a little insect here, there's a little butterfly there, there's a little caterpillar there. So that also gets me excited now. So smaller, finer things like
to help him be more present and appreciate the beauty around him at all times.
I think it's very important to keep reminding yourself why you're with this person, because when there are disagreements, which will always be there, right? Because you're two different people and you're trying to live together. So there are going to be disagreements, there's going to be friction, right? But it's important, and because of this friction, we sometimes tend to lose sight of, why we love the person. The feeling of love is there, but keep reminding yourself of the reasons, why you love this person so much is very, very important, because we might tend to take things that they do for us for granted, like we might not be grateful for the things that they do for us. We might not acknowledge them as much. So it's very important to sit down together and acknowledge that, hey, listen, every time that I sit to eat, you automatically get up and you get, a bottle of water and you keep it beside me without me having to ask you. I see that you do that, right? I tell Kush that, people look at us, they hear our story and they're like, oh, wow. But they don't know there's so much crying going on in the background and we're like, wiping the tears again and then, trying to figure out, kya theek hai, ab isko theek kaise karna hai.
And that's actually the thing with a lot of Bollywood, or let's not say Bollywood, but like greater than life love stories, right? Is that they're magical in that infatuation period. But to really stand the test of time, it can't just be all magic that's the universe orchestrated for you. You have to find a way to create that magic every day in your relationship. It seems like you guys have found
one more thing, Ankur. People say that, you have to give your 100% all the time in a relationship. You will not be able to.
Is marriage something that you think is on the horizon? Is that something you guys are looking to?
I mean, he doesn't have any other option.
I like that.
Yes, we've been talking about it a lot. And since he's the ho jayega kind of guy, he's like, ho jayega. And I'm like, okay, do you want a girl or a boy as your first kid? He's like, Manya, what are you talking about? ये सब अभी नहीं सोचना है, हो जाएगा. So yes, we've talked about how we'll work our finances, what we'll do, what are our long-term goals, where do we see ourselves individually and together.
Oof, that's really good.
What kind of plants do we want in our house? How many pets we want to adopt?
Yeah, I think those are important questions.
I feel like if we are not satisfied individually, we wouldn't function as a unit. And this is something both of us prioritize, and I'm glad because he's also taught me that. So I really appreciate that he takes up his own space and he pushes me to take up my own space in the relationship, and both of us prioritize, being happy with what we do, being enthusiastic about our everyday lives, and then we come together and then we are happy together.
Man, this was really incredible talking to you. I mean, you seem like such a wonderful person. I'm very happy for you and Kush. It seems like you guys got something very special that
we have.
Honestly is inspiring probably to a lot of people who are watching this and looking for a life partner.
Kush, if you're watching this, see, I made it, even though I was anxious. Because he texted me right before the show. He was like, breathe, you'll do it.